All right, welcome back to the show, folks. You got the American Adversaries singing along with Steve Tyler and Aerosmith there. Yeah, that's right. You got the American Adversaries Drive Time Primetime Show live on AM 660 The Answer as we come to you from the Mercury Free Broadcasting Studios. And please do not forget, for the very best in health-centered dentistry and mercury-free dentistry, call my dentist, Dr. James E. Hardy, at 407-678-3399. Christopher Hart here. Nick Locicero's on the bridge. Lucas Paris has us up on the Periscope. You can go to our channel on YouTube, American Adversaries TV, and you'll be able to see what we're up to here in the studio. Got Wallace Brushweiler on the line. Wallace, along with Carl Jackson, will be the featured speakers tomorrow night at the Eastmont Civic Center. The doors open at 6:30. It's free, so you can head on over there. The presentations start at 7. It's being sponsored by the Greater Orlando Citizen Action Network. We're talking with Wallace now. If you didn't hear it and if you're just joining us, Wallace is an expert on the Middle East. He's a linguist. He's spent a lot of time in the Middle East. He's seen these terrorist groups from the early, what we would consider early stages, the modern era, if you will. Wallace, I want to start with something a little bit closer to home, though, because one of the things I think you're going to be talking about is going on right over here on our East Coast at Port Canaveral. Can you tell us about the group that is now running Port Canaveral?
It's a group headquartered in the Middle East, was involved, at least as far as we could ascertain, was involved in shipping weapons to Hamas. There was fortunately intercepted by IDF, Israeli Defense Forces, in open international waters in the Red Sea, and they just brought one of the ships in, and they showed to the world what Iran was supplying or trying to supply to Hamas in Gaza.
So you're saying the agency, that the corporation is what it is, I believe, that is running Port Canaveral was involved in arms shipments to Hamas.
Yes. Now, you have to understand, there is an agreement which was signed, was worked last year in June last year, 2014, and signed. It's a lease agreement for 35 years. And that is what, unfortunately, from existing laws, does not require security screening.
Does not require security screening?
No, because it's a lease agreement. It's not a sale. I mean, it's not an outright sale.
Why do you think that this? I remember this going into effect last year, and it got a little bit of play in the media, but not very much.
No, it didn't. I mean, absolutely. I mean,
why not? Why not? I mean, because when
high powers. The media is unfortunately in the hands of the left, at least the majority.
Right.
And
do you think that it had something to do with the fact that when this was attempted before, I believe George W. Bush was president, and it was turned down. In other words, it was turned back because it made a play in the media. I remember Sean Hannity making a big deal out of it, as well as other talk show hosts, and Congress stepped up and said, "Oh no, you don't." But this time, do you think because we have a Democrat and Barack Obama in particular as a president, that
yes.
something was different?
You asked the question, and the answer is straight yes. Now, you have to understand that during the Bush case, it was, if I remember correctly, it was an outright sale.
Yes, I believe so.
And you say a sale requires security screening. This time, and there the Clinton Foundation has its hands in, and they are very clever from that point of view. They have very good legal advice, and they use it. And so they played it safe from that point of view, that it did not require. And this is why I think, to answer your original question, this is why it went very softly, and practically no big coverage in the media, be it the written media or the television, nothing. And you say you have to understand, at least the way I see it, when and if the media becomes too inquisitive, there are people who will contact that entity and tell them that they should slow down and forget the whole thing. And that even if need to be by changing dollar figures from one account to the other, if you see what I mean.
Yeah, I do see what you mean.
You see, you have to understand, I personally see that the entire case was handled by and had the hand of the Clintons and the Clinton Foundation.
On this Port Canaveral deal?
Yes, sir.
The Clinton Foundation?
At least it had a part. Minor or major, I don't know yet.
Well, certainly, it sounds like something right out of their playbook.
Oh, that is, that's part of the playbook.
Yeah. But should this cause us real concern? I mean...
Listen, there are two ways to see it.
Okay.
You understand, whatever containers come into any harbor in the United States is the responsibility of the Department of Homeland Security.
Right.
So, unfortunately, on the side that is the law and the rule, but in praxis, what I heard, and I haven't been able to confirm that, I'm really surprised, only 4% of the containers are really screened. So this, in my opinion, would create quite a big problem.
Especially if the perpetrators, if you will, are the port operators themselves, because at some point they would be aware of which 4%, or at least the pattern of the Homeland Security and how they go about their business.
Definitely, that's 100%. You're right. No, that's the problem, and I think that, in my opinion, right now the thing which should happen, and I'm only hoping that it will happen, is that the DoD, because of the installations right next to the port, is everything. There's a nuclear submarine.
It's a sub base over there. Yeah.
There's everything. There's NASA, NSA. Everybody is there. So I think that the only way that we would change the entire outcome would be that the military and the intelligence community wakes up and does what it's supposed to do.
Yeah, well, we're going to probably have to wait about another year and a half, unfortunately, for that to happen, Wallace.
Look.
You know what I'm talking about.
That's out of my mouth.
Yeah, exactly. Let's talk for a few minutes about the Middle East. Why you've been watching that situation over there for decades.
Yeah.
Why do you think that the Arab Spring suddenly sprung up a couple of years ago?
Spring, I don't want to come and give out all the goodies which will be covered tomorrow. But basically, the Arab Spring was decided by our administration. They wanted to change all the regimes in North Africa, which were strong men like Gaddafi and Mubarak,
sure,
basically, and replace them with the excuse was democracy, which is a complete fallacy.
Right.
You have to understand, the Arabs do not understand our concept of democracy. They are used for hundreds and thousands of years to the tribal system. And the tribal system has nothing to do with democracy. It's the strong man takes over and you pledge alliance to that strong man, period. Just as an example, Libya, for example, basically was and still is 3 or 4 major tribes. And Gaddafi and the king before, King Idris, had a strong hand, and the other 3 tribes just submitted and pledged alliance. As an example, today the big thing is Iraq. Iraq is composed of 47 different tribes. And you come in and tell them you want to install democracy, they look at you and they say, look, you don't understand where you are. It's Disneyland for them. It's absolutely. You see, the problem with the entire Middle East was dating back at the collapse of, or let's say, the victory over the Ottoman Empire. And the Ottoman Empire then was, by some, I call them wise idiots in Paris and London, decided to divide the Middle East and do artificial borderlines. There is no country in the world that has straight lines as a border. And if you look at the map in the Middle East, they're practically all straight lines.
Right, and of course they didn't.
Therefore, for example, you take the Kurds. The Kurds deserve a country on their own. The Kurds are in Iraq, in Syria, and in Turkey.
Turkey, right. Yeah.
And you can't divide that, and you can't tell them, look, you have to obey. They say, no, we're not obeying. We are independent. It's a race on our own. Take another smaller example, the Druze.
Yeah.
Druze are and in Syria, and in Lebanon.
Yeah.
And they're completely, they
all right. Hey,
don't understand what's going on from that point of view. You can't do that.
All right. Al has a question for you, then I have another question or two before we run out of time here.
No problem.
Okay, Al, thank you for calling. Your question for Wallace, please.
Yes, my question is the port deal. Did Obama use executive order powers to make that deal go through?
Wallace, did President Obama have any direct hand in this deal going through that you know of?
Not that I'm aware of. Okay. I wouldn't be surprised, but you see, look, you have to understand, today's administration we have is a very strange animal, as I say it. I have a tendency to think that there is a puppet master on top of everybody in our administration, and it's Valerie Jarrett. And Valerie Jarrett controls Obama, controlled Hillary, and controls now the gentleman I call it that way, John Ketchup Kerry. So,
why didn't Republicans stop it?
That's a good question also. Thank you, Al. I appreciate it. I got to let you go because I'm running out of time. But why didn't the Republicans step in and do something about this? Was it they just weren't aware of what was going on, Wallace?
I think they weren't aware.
They just didn't know what was going on.
It went totally under the radar.
I know. The first I heard about it was already a done deal.
Yep.
Basically, the news report came across, that it was announcing that it already...
was announced by the time two executives of the Middle Eastern company were on a flight and landing in the United States to sign the deal.
Yeah. One last question on the Middle East before I have to let you go. And don't forget, folks, you can catch Wallace up close and live tomorrow night at the Eastmont Civic Center along with Carl Jackson. Do you think that going back to what we were talking about with the Arab Spring, do you think that what's going on now will result in more natural borders, or do you think that this is going to result in, once again, the West having to come in and sort of redraw borders?
No, listen, here we have, look, the Arab Spring materialized only in North Africa. The countries involved were Tunisia, Libya, and Egypt. To a certain extent, Algeria, but Algeria clamped down, and that was it. Morocco untouched because the king knows how to handle those little problems. So therefore, and the rest of the Middle East is totally the eco-political, the political economic map will be completely redrawn, but redrawn not by us, but by people on the ground. For example, just to tell you, the alliances now are unheard of 5 years ago. For example, Israel is befriended with Saudi Arabia. For example, just to give you an example, Israel offered to sell Saudi Arabia the Iron Dome system. Done deal, finish. The intelligence Organization of Israel, Mossad, and the Saudis have been meeting for, I would reckon, about the last 5 years in Geneva, in Vienna, in London. It's, you see, it's the enemy of my enemy is my friend.
So that's what we see at work.
Yes, you will have a complete reshuffle. You will have, on one side, you will have Saudis. You will have the Shiite, the Sunnis on one side.
Do you think
you see, the problem Saudi Arabia has, and that is, it's not very well understood. The royal, the king's family and his entourage are Sunnis, but the majority of the population are Shiites.
Right.
This is why they are afraid of Iran, because Iran is, let's say, controlling practically the Shiite population.
Right.
And so, therefore, this is where the problem is. And years ago, the Saudis made an agreement with the Pakistani that in case Iran turns nuclear, that Saudi Arabia will have access to Pakistani nuclear weapons.
One last question. Do you think that the United States should play a much larger role, or just get out of the way and let nature take its course?
No. They should take, I would even say it should take a leading role, but not with the people on the field right now. Those people have absolutely no understanding of the Middle East, none whatsoever. They're totally not capable of, and they are not taking the people.
You're talking about this administration?
Yes.
Okay. All right, Wallace, I'm sorry, we're going to have to leave it there, but obviously it's going to be a great lecture tomorrow night, and I suggest that people, if they really want to be educated about this stuff, to get over there and hear you speak and meet you up close.
I hope that you will be there.
Yeah, I'm going to make every effort to be there, because it's right up the street. As soon as the show's over, I'm going to shoot down there.
Okay.
All right.
It'll be my pleasure to shake your hand.
Mine as well, to shake yours, Wallace. I appreciate it. Thanks for being on the show tonight. It's fascinating stuff. We'll have to have you back one way or the other on the American Adversaries show.